180. $200. Did you read all the information that is checked here? That is correct. Did you indicate that you were asking him to submit to a blood test? Yes, ma'am. A laboratory technician had previously given you a kit that they use for obtaining blood specimens. Is that right? That's right. All right, what happened next? I handed the kit to a doctor. He drew the blood and handed the specimen directly to me. It was properly sealed, and I put it in a container for mailing to the crime lab. Did you do any paperwork in connection with this procedure? I filled out the form that accompanies the blood specimen. The technician at the crime laboratory records her analysis on the bottom of this form and sends it back to our department. I am showing you what the clerk has marked States Exhibit 2. Please identify that, deputy. This is the form that I was referring to. What portion of it did you fill out? The portion which contains the subject's name and address, the portion which contains my name and address, and the portion which contains the date and time. Does it say what time the physician draws the specimen? 10:45. After the doctor drew the specimen, I asked him to place his signature in the space provided for that purpose. Please state your name and address. My name is Mark Hill and I live on Maple Drive. What is your profession? I am a physician. How long have you been a physician? For 10 years approximately. Are you licensed to practice medicine in this state? Yes, I am. Do you have a specialty? General pathology. What training in general did you take in order to practice in this state? I attended medical school for 4 years and then 4 more years of pathology training. Do you limit your practice to that specialty? Yes, I do. Do you hold a political office in this county? Yes, I do. I'm the coroner. How long have you held that office? For 6 years. Is that an elected office? Yes, it is. Doctor, in your capacity as the coroner, did you go to the scene of a traffic accident on April 27? Yes, I did. According to my record, I arrived there about 9 p.m. Where was this accident? It was on the highway approximately 1 mile north of the city limits. When you arrived there, doctor, what did you find? There were 2 automobiles that had been in an head-on collision. As I was going north, I saw one vehicle on the right side of the highway facing north. The other vehicle was on the left side of the highway, also facing north. What color was the vehicle on the left side? I don't recall. I really didn't inspect the car very closely. Do you recall the color of the other vehicle? It was a smaller model. It was a Japanese car, and it was dark brown. Doctor, what did you do when you arrived at the scene of the accident? One of the officers advised me that there were 2 dead people in the rear seat of the smaller vehicle. A person was lying partially out of the door. Which door, doctor? The driver's door. I inspected both of these individuals and confirmed the fact that they were dead. Altogether, how many people did you find at the scene of the accident? There were 3 altogether. Were they men or women? They were women. Did you examine those women at the scene of the accident? I examined the 2 that were in the back seat of the automobile. What about the other one, doctor? I briefly looked at the person who was trapped in the driver's seat. I helped the paramedics and the police officers in extracting her from the car, and then I helped carry her to the funeral wagon. Doctor, with respect to the driver, what was the cause of her death? She had multiple injuries. Any of them could have caused her death. Her lungs collapsed as a result of being torn, and she could not breathe. In your opinion, did she get these injuries from the automobile accident? That is my opinion, yes. On the basis of what you saw, doctor, was she an otherwise healthy person? She certainly seemed to be in good health. She was a young individual, and she was well nourished. Where did you examine the 2 women who were in the back seat? I examined them at the funeral home. What did you find upon your examination of them, doctor? Both of them were very pale. Their bodies were relatively unmarked. And so I assumed that they had died from multiple tears of body tissues. In other words, these individuals bled to death. Doctor, when you examined them at the scene of the accident, did you observe any lacerations to their bodies? Is this the kind of bleeding you mean? No, ma'am. As I said, their bodies were relatively unmarked. In fact, there were only minor abrasions. In this instance, they died from internal bleeding. It might have been a torn liver, for example. How rapid would death be as a result of this type of injury? About a minute. When you first observed these two women in the back seat, what were their positions? The first one was stretched out with her head extended backward. The other one was more or less in a fetal position. Doctor, could the trauma of being thrown from the back seat to the front seat cause the type of internal bleeding that you have described? It certainly could have. Is that your professional opinion? Yes, it is. Did it appear to you from what you saw that they were in good physical condition before the accident? They seemed to be in good condition. They were normal young women who were well nourished. Doctor, with respect to all three of these women, what is your professional opinion as to the cause of their deaths? My opinion is that they died from internal injuries and bleeding. Did you form an opinion as to how these injuries were sustained? They were sustained as a result of the automobile accident. Doctor, what did you do after you had examined the three young women at the scene and after you had determined that they were dead? Did you remain there on the highway? No, I didn't. I went to the funeral home. Was this after the deceased persons had been transported from the accident scene? We all went together in the undertaker's vehicle. I see. What did you do when you arrived at the funeral home? I drew blood from the driver. The law requires me to draw blood when there has been a fatality. What did you do next? I went to the hospital to see whether I could assist the emergency room personnel with treating the people who had survived the accident. Do you recall who was being treated? There were two men and a woman. One of the men was the automobile driver, and he is the defendant in this action. Did you also observe a deputy sheriff who was investigating the accident? Yes, I did. Did he ask you to draw a blood specimen from the defendant? Yes, he did. He had a blood kit that he had obtained from a laboratory technician. You are familiar with the approved method for using the kit to draw blood, is that correct? Correct. I had done it several times. Did you use the material in the kit for this procedure? That is correct. What did you do with the blood specimen? I handed it to the deputy sheriff. Did he seal it in your presence? The container is sealed to begin with. He put it into a box and sealed the box. Doctor, I'm showing you what has been marked State's Exhibit 2. Can you identify that? This is a request for a blood analysis. The Sheriff's Department needs that. Officer, state your name for the record. My name is Mark Hill. How are you employed? I am a detective for the police department. How long have you been employed by the department? For 12 years. What is your assignment with the department at the present time? I am now assigned to the Organized Crime Division. Were you working on September 4? Yes, sir. What was your assignment at that time? I was assigned to the narcotics section, and I was working with some federal agents. About how long had you been working in the narcotics section? At that particular time, I had been working in that section for about 3 months. How was it that you became involved with the federal agents? They had contacted us. It is usual for agencies to cooperate when they work in each other's jurisdiction. All right, where did you meet those agents? At our office on State Street. After that meeting, where did you go? We went to the vicinity of 168 South Maple Street. I was in a vehicle and I was slightly south of that location. You were wearing plain clothes at that time, is that correct? That's correct. Were there other officers in that general area? There was one other police officer who was my partner and a number of federal agents.